U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson is in Russia following international talks over the crisis in Syria. The chemical attack there, followed by U.S. airstrikes and Russian involvement in Syria's civil war, make for a somber meeting. Tillerson says Russia must choose between aligning itself with the U.S. and like-minded countries or embracing Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Iran and the militant group Hezbollah. Tillerson will meet with Russia's foreign minister and possibly Russian President Vladimir Putin.
U.S. Defense Secretary James Mattis says Thursday's U.S. missile strike against a Syrian airbase destroyed 20% of the military's aircraft. According to a U.S. Department of Defense assessment, the strike resulted in the damage of fuel and ammunition sites, as well as Damascus' air defense capabilities. And Mattis says this means the Syrian government has lost the ability to refuel or rearm aircraft at Shayrat airfield. And he also said the bombing is a cautious response from the White House in retaliation for the suspected chemical attack against Syrian civilians last week.
North Korea says it will take tough countermeasures if the U.S. opts for military action after moving the USS Carl Vinson aircraft carrier to the waters off the Korean peninsula. The Pentagon sent the carrier and its battle group after North Korea's latest missile test last week, one of several the country has test-fired in recent months. We will hold the U.S. wholly accountable for the catastrophic consequences to be entailed by its outrageous actions, said a spokesman for North Korea's foreign ministry. And this statement came on North Korean television. The United States is dispatching Carl Vinson Nuclear Carrier Task Group again in the waters off the peninsula proves that the U.S.'s reckless moves for invading North Korea have reached a serious phase. If the U.S. dares opt for a military action, it is crying out for preemptive attack and removal of the headquarters. Then North Korea is ready to react to any mode of war desired by the U.S. On Sunday, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said U.S. missile strikes against a Syrian air base in retaliation for a chemical weapon attack also carry a message for other countries.
Well, I think the message that any nation can take is if you violate international norms, if you violate international agreements, if you fail to live up to commitments, if you become a threat to others, at some point a response is likely to be undertaken. And I think in terms of North Korea, we've been very clear that our objective is a denuclearized Korean peninsula. We have no objective to change the regime in North Korea. That is not our objective.
Tillerson also shared concerns about how close North Korea is to developing nuclear weapons that could be put on missiles that could reach the U.S.
The assessments are obviously somewhat difficult, but clearly he has made significant advancements in delivery systems. And that is what concerns us the most.
U.S. Navy ships are a common presence in the Korean region and are in part a show of force. On Saturday night, the Pentagon said a Navy carrier strike group was moving toward the Western Pacific Ocean to provide more of a physical presence in the region.
We see this kind of action again, we hold open the possibility of future action. You can't imagine a stable and peaceful Syria with Assad as in charge. I don't think that's a scenario that's possible. But I think that the first step in that has to be to make sure that the region and Syria in particular are stable.
And also on Monday, U.S. Defense Secretary James Mattis said a Friday strike on Shayrat airfield near Homs destroyed 20% of their fixed-wing aircraft. He said it damaged the Syrian fuel and ammunition sites and air defense capabilities. Mattis called the strike a measured response to the use of chemical weapons inside the country.
You look, we didn't use chemical weapons in World War II. You know, you had someone as despicable as Hitler, who didn't even sink to using chemical weapons.
Something you said that seems to be gaining some traction right now. Quote, Hitler didn't even sink to the level of using chemical weapons. What did you mean by that?
I think when you come to sarin gas, he was not using the gas on his own people the same way that Assad is doing. I mean, there was clearly, I understand your point. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. There was not he brought him into to the Holocaust Center. I understand that. But I'm saying in the way that Assad used them, where he went into towns, dropped them down to innocent into the middle of towns, it was brought to it. So the use of it, and I appreciate the clarification there. That was not the intent.
We start our international news with the PR disaster for United Airlines. The company's move to drag a man off an overbooked flight has sparked outrage around the world and especially in China. With more on this and other news in East Asia, let's turn to our Aram. Aram, the incident went viral globally, but it seems Chinese people are particularly incensed.
Yes, that's right, Gia. After videos of the incident went viral on Weibo and WeChat, China's two most popular social networking sites, hundreds of thousands of angry comments started flooding in. Most of them pointed to the man's race as the reason for him to be treated the way he was. The man in question has been identified as 69-year-old David Dow, a Vietnamese-American medical doctor from Elizabethtown, Kentucky, and a father of 5. Some Chinese netizens also questioned why, out of so many passengers, an Asian couple were chosen to give up their seats to make way for flight staff. A petition has circulated on WeChat calling for passengers to boycott United Airlines, which flies to several destinations in China. Another petition with more than 60,000 signatures has been sent to the White House, demanding a federal investigation into the matter. Netizens have also reacted angrily to United Airlines CEO Oscar Munoz, who has been pilloried for his response to the matter. In an email to employees, he defended his airline's actions, saying the passenger had been disruptive and belligerent by refusing to leave the plane. One of the 3 security officials involved in the incident has been placed on leave, and the U.S. Department of Transportation is reviewing whether United complied with rules on overbooking.
Caitlyn Jenner says she has undergone genitalia surgery 2 years after the Olympic-winning decathlete announced she had transitioned to a woman. One of the most high-profile American transgender women, Jenner says in an upcoming memoir she had the surgery in January and decided to go public, quote, so you all can stop staring. In a leaked excerpt of the book, The Secrets of My Life, she writes, you want to know, so now you know, which is why this is the first time and the last time I will ever speak of it. The excerpts were published by entertainment website Radar Online ahead of the April 25th publication of the memoir. According to additional passages in the book, Jenner says having a penis had, quote, no special gifts or use for me. I just want to have all the right parts. I'm also tired of tucking the damn thing in all the time. Grand Central Publishing says it did not wish to discuss the contents ahead of the publication date, and Jenner's representatives had no comment. Transgender people shared Jenner's distress over being asked intrusive questions about their genitals, although many forego gender reassignment surgery, citing the high cost.
North Korea warning the United States it will respond to, quote, reckless acts of aggression with whatever methods the U.S. wants to take.
We're there for deterrence purposes.
Ron B. is a foreign affairs expert at the University of San Diego.
My take on it is that folks in North Korea saw what happened in Syria, and they're concerned that the Vinson may be coming to do the same sort of thing with its 2 missile carriers with it, and so they had to issue a warning.
The warning comes as 5,000 sailors, most based in San Diego, are on their way to the Korean peninsula. They're part of a strike group of 4 warships and 60 aircraft, led by the USS Carl Vinson, escorted by missile-guided destroyers USS Wayne E. Meyer and the USS Michael Murphy, and the guided missile cruiser, the USS Lake Champlain.
We need to reassure our allies that we're there to help them should North Korea do anything silly.
Bee says North Korea may be planning to launch missiles, possibly nuclear, in a few days on April 15th, all in celebration of the birthday of leader Kim Jong-un's late grandfather, who led the country after the Korean War.
Remember, the missile test goes into the Sea of Japan, and they don't notify Japan when this happens. They don't notify South Korea when this happens. We happen to be allies of both of them.
Some experts believe that the USS Vincent and the other warships would be in a position to shoot down a missile.
The Russian President Vladimir Putin says that Moscow has information about a pre-planned chemical attack around the capital Damascus in order to blame the Syrian government. Putin once again criticized the United States' firing of cruise missiles at a Syrian airbase last week. He said the strike reminded him of Washington's reasoning to declare war on Iraq to find weapons of mass destruction there. The Russian president says that Moscow will call on international authorities and the UN to conduct a thorough inquiry into allegations of the use of chemical agents by the Syrian army against civilians. Syria's chemical stockpile was already destroyed under the supervision of the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons back in 2014.
British Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson says support for the Syrian president is toxifying the reputation of Russia, and he suggests that sanctions could be imposed if Moscow refuses to change course. Russia has rejected accusations that al-Assad used chemical arms against his own people, and Italy has also invited the foreign ministers from Turkey, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Jordan and Qatar to sit down with the G7 group on Tuesday to discuss Syria. All oppose al-Assad's rule.
Has China changed its stance on its traditional ally, North Korea? Well, Beijing's agreed to slap stronger UN sanctions on the North if it carries out a widely expected provocation, and it had a rather restrained response to Washington's decision to send back its USS Carl Vinson strike group to the Korean Peninsula. Connie Kim has our top story.
Chinese President Xi Jinping did not display a change of stance on dealing with North Korea following a summit with U.S. President Donald Trump last week. But Beijing seems to be upping more pressure on the North after seeing Washington's firm stance against Pyongyang's nuclear threats. Following the U.S.-China summit, China's top nuclear envoy Wu Dawei quickly made a trip to South Korea to hold talks with his South Korean counterpart Kim Hong-gyun on Monday, where the two agreed for stronger measures against North Korea if it conducts another nuclear test.
The two sides agreed to additional and stronger UN Security Council resolutions if the North carries out a strategic provocation, such as a nuclear test or an intercontinental ballistic missile launch, despite warnings from the international community.
China, a traditional ally of North Korea, had previously been reluctant to corner Pyongyang too much. But in what could be seen as a possible change on China's North Korea policy, Beijing's foreign ministry released a rather refrained quote to Washington's uncommon decision to send back its USS Carl Vinson strike group near the Korean Peninsula, in contrast to widely expected strong opposition comments. China's recent moves seem to reflect U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson's statement in an interview with CBS following Trump and Xi's summit that Beijing is beginning to recognize that North Korea presents a threat to even China's interest. While there are speculations Beijing may have decided to take on a hardline policy against the regime, some North Korea watchers in Seoul say this is part of China's calculated moves.
It seems like China's North Korea policy changed, but Beijing has the habit of pushing North Korea away whenever tensions rise on the Korean Peninsula and pull Pyongyang back when tensions die down.
Experts who agree with such views say China is likely to display its original stance when Washington's strategic assets pull out from the Korean Peninsula.
Seoul's defense ministry has played down concerns the U.S. will take military action against North Korea as a warning for its nuclear and missile development. The ministry's spokesperson said today that it's important not to get carried away with rumors on social media. Concerns over a possible preemptive strike came after the Trump administration carried out airstrikes on Syria last week in response to the Assad regime's use of chemical weapons. The spokesperson also assured that the South Korea-U.S. military alliance remains strong and that any military action would take place based on the robust combined defense posture. But he declined to clarify whether that meant Washington would require consent from Seoul for such action.
North Korea's rubber stamp parliament convened for its annual session on Tuesday, presided over by leader Kim Jong-un. The meeting comes amid heightened tensions on the Korean peninsula, as well as growing concerns a sixth nuclear test could be imminent. Yoo Jin-hee reports.
On Tuesday, North Korea convened its fifth session of the 13th Supreme People's Assembly in Pyongyang, with the country's leader Kim Jong-un personally attending the meeting. The session is likely aimed at commemorating Kim's leadership to coincide with the 5th anniversary of his rise to power. The Supreme People's Assembly is North Korea's primary legislative body and the highest organ of state power, at least according to its constitution. However, many experts say it's merely a rubber stamp institution that is entirely subservient to the ruling Workers' Party of Korea. On the same day, North Korea's state media warned it was ready to conduct a nuclear strike on the United States in response to any signs of American aggression. Tensions have risen sharply after Washington announced the deployment of the aircraft carrier USS Carl Vinson and its battle group to the Korean Peninsula in an apparent show of force. Eyes are being drawn to Kim Jong-un and whether or not he will deliver a message at the assembly in regards to the country's nuclear ambitions. Many experts believe Pyongyang is making preparations to conduct its sixth nuclear test. This year's meeting is likely to be accompanied by a string of major celebrations, including large-scale military parades and fireworks. This Saturday marks the 105th anniversary of the birth of Kim Il-sung, North Korea's founding leader and Kim Jong-un's late grandfather.
Now, elsewhere in the world, 3 explosions hit the Borussia Dortmund football team bus on Tuesday just before their Champions League quarter-final with AFC Monaco. The incident occurred as the German side were leaving their hotel for a 10-minute drive to Signal Iduna Park, where the match was to be played. Dortmund defender and Spain international Marc Bartra was sent to hospital after injuring his hand, but other players are said to be unharmed. Police are investigating the exact cause of the incident, and they suspect the devices were planted in a hedge near a car park and detonated as the bus passed by. The match, meanwhile, has been postponed to Wednesday at 6:45 p.m. local time.